Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 2, and today I'm going to be giving you part 11 of What If Naruto Was a Uchiha that created his own village. Remember to get this one too 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends on your social media platform, and also guys, I posted a brand new episode of What If Naruto Had all blood demon art over an anime symbol. So don't forget to go ahead and check that out, and yeah, enjoy. And if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice, yes, I indeed have 3 more channels that I post What If on every single day for you guys to enjoy. So go ahead and obliterate that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. So without further ado or wasting any more time, how about we jump right into this brand new episode? Let us begin now, guys. So, to do a bit of a recap from the last part that we left off, both Mito and Sasuke were now grown, and they were on a mission, yes. Given the fact that the village was not being public with their missions, it was the first time in a long while that they were actually doing it. However, this was towards the land of spring. There had been those that were against the regime, against Koyuki's idea, because a lot of them possess snow abilities, ice abilities that they relied on the coldness to use. And one person in particular, he felt it was his blood right. And his job was simple. He was going to execute Koyuki. However, he found that rather difficult as she got backup. She even had someone in his ranks that was reporting back to her, as each member possessed what seemed to be a badge. The smallest one, as there were 3 of them. The third one was inexperience. The second, who had more experience, and the third was the elite ninjas. However, the village had several different sections, yes. There were several different sections that the village had in terms of their ninjas, their hunters, their sealing corps, and many others. Both Sasuke and Mito combined their attack into a collaboration attack that blew the guy away, saving the village and saving the people there. Because of the technology growth, a lot has happened, as the village now had many aircrafts that was able to erase the long time spent traveling, and that was great for the groups, as Kirei was next in line to be the next product of this. There was also the land of rain as well. Nagato was on his feet, as Naruto was the one that accomplished his feat by healing his legs. Fuinjutsu mixed in, as Nagato was on his feet. He believed that he could take the masked man by himself, but he escaped, as Nagato had disbanded the organization. Yes, he disbanded the group. Right now, things were different. Everyone was shocked when the Rain Village opened up their borders, showing that they were now siding alongside the entire land of water, and therefore their closeness towards the land of water where Kiryu was located formed a new ally through Naruto, and therefore the land of rain was also in the regime as well. Yes, things were going good as a year and a couple of months had passed, as Naruto went home to find Erza, who was pregnant, yes. He was going to be having a child. He was going to be a father. Itachi had a beautiful girl that they named after his mother, as everything was going well. As for the Stone and Kumo, they had drawn a ceasefire, not wanting any retaliation because they knew that a retaliation will end with them being completely wiped away. However, while all of that was going on, while everything was so peaceful, the One Tails had been missing during the attack on Konoha. But that was not all. The Seven Tails was recently taken, but Taki did not make this a public announcement, not wanting people to know that they've gotten extremely weak. Deep underground, it was none other than Danzo Shimura, as he was working with none other than Orochimaru. They were able to create something rather special. With a lot of time and a lot of resource and access to said tail beast chakra, they were able to create something rather deadly. It was a miniature tail beast that had taken a human form, a sand one. Orochimaru now had control over it after implanting Funjutsu inside of his chakra directly. However, they needed more if they were going to accomplish what they seek to do. Some time passed after that, as Naruto's son was born. They named him Boruto. Things were going good as it has been over 4 years now and everything seemed well. Even Sasuke and Mito, they started to date. As a lot of family was growing within his nation, Izumi was even pregnant once again. Yes, she was pregnant. As Itachi had never talked about this, but he always dreamed of having a big family, and it seems the both of them were on the exact same page. Even Urza and Naruto were thinking about having another baby to give Boruto a younger brother or a younger sister. So yes, everything was peaceful until it happened. The land of Swamp. The leader was a woman, her name was Rika, as she was in the Great Allies that was allied with Naruto and the others. Everything was peaceful until something happened. As their village started to be attacked out of nowhere, great monstrosities ran through their village and slaughtered everyone. Rika tried to fight back, but she was overwhelmed and she was killed. However, this was not the only one. All of the allies that had allied themselves with Naruto and Kiri and also the Land of Spring were being attacked by monsters. Something big was coming as a force that has been growing over the past couple of years within the shadow was now ready, and it was time that they strike and slaughter. So yeah guys, basically that's what I thought you guys can switch across the place, check it out for yourself. So say we jump right into this brand new episode. Begin now guys. It's been a long time since Naruto has been this angry. A very long time. He was furious as his blood was boiling. Naruto was looking around at all the chaos. Buildings were just being put out after being set ablaze. Countless explosions and destruction all around. As Naruto saw the body of Rika as he stood within the land of Swamp, one of his first few allies that had joined over to his side. The entire village had been demolished, countless dead. As someone landed beside Naruto, wearing the red and black mask, showing the allegiance towards the Uchiha nation, he whispered something to him as Naruto headed off. Arriving, as Naruto found one of the chief officers of this village. He was still alive, as he was in a hospital bed, bandaged up. He was awake. Naruto knew him quite well. "Sir Naruto," he said, greeting with respect. Naruto raised a hand, stopping him from pulling himself up. "It is alright, Akaido. Don't push yourself," said Naruto. "Just tell me, what happened here?" "It happened so fast," the man known as Akaido said. "They came out of nowhere. I was heading towards another village meeting when I heard the screams. We tried to take them down, but their bodies were made from sand. It seems puncturing and spearing them did absolutely nothing. The only thing that would work was using chakra-based attack on them. However, their numbers were so great. And then the others came. They descended down from the heavens, causing sizable explosions and destroying the buildings. We weren't able to fight them off. It all happened so fast, and right after, they demolished everything they simply left. I wasn't. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's alright," he said. "A great tragedy has happened here. I will make sure that all of your survivors have nothing to worry about in this tragic time," said Naruto. "All you have to do is just rest." "Thank you, sir," the man said. As Naruto stepped out, one of his people came to him once again, as they brought him towards the area. Arriving there, Naruto reached, as he put his hand into the sand that was left behind. As he brought it up to his face, his Sharingan sprang into life as he examined the sand, before he snapped his gaze up once again and disembarked. Meanwhile that was going on, something rather phenomenal, something rather large was taking place. A collection of those who had been wronged. A collection of those who were going to take the elemental nation for themselves. Yes, here they were. They were all gathered. All grievances, past tragics, actions had to be put aside. Because all of them had one goal. But none of them had the power to do it by themselves. But together, they shall prevail. The first person focusing on was the granddaughter of Oniki, forbidden to be on the battlefield during the battle, as she was forced to stay behind to make sure the village was safe. As she watched the survivors return, just a handful when thousands were sent. Her grandfather was a part of those who lost their life that day. Their numbers had taken a huge blow, and it had not recovered over the years. However, this was not something they could simply allow. They had to do something. As she was given the title of Tsuchikage, her name was Kurosaki, and here she sat. Next to her was a man. They call him K. K was simply a representative for Komo's side. After what happened, a lot of infighting had happened in the village, similar to what happened during the second Raikage reign, as those who believed they were destitute to take over. Yes, a lot of infighting had happened, but the council was able to retain power over these past couple of years, and the position of Raikage was not handed out to anyone. K was seen as a symbol of that title, but he was simply a representation between the council and what was currently taking place. They had so many taken from them: power, land. They were heavily weakened. However, they still had forces. The Raikage would never allow all of his forces to be on the battlefield, fearing the worst. The Tsuchikage was the same way as well. However, this time they will not lose, gathering the forces of those who decided to stick by their side through this. And the strongest nation, it has always been reigned that name supreme over the years. Danzo Shimura sat to his other side. The old cripple had been cooking this up for some time now, and it was time that they finally did it once and for all. Next to Danzo was a slimy, slippery bastard who cannot be trusted, but unfortunately though, they had to work with him because he was a big part of this. Orochimaru of the Sannin. Next to Orochimaru was Baki, as he was the Kazekage of the Sen. The Kazekage had no choice after their batch invasion on the village, which was actually led by Orochimaru, and given the past grievances, Danzo had threatened to rain destruction down on the Sen if they choose to pull back on this. However, the fact that he was here siding with someone like Orochimaru was rather shocking. But the only person that knew of this was Baki. So if that secret was to get leaked, Baki would be killed and his village would be wiped off the map, and his people would be used as slaves. Danzo had made it clear to him and show him the power that they wield. Baki had no choice. The Sand had no choice but to fight by Konoha's side. The world was locked into two positions. Those that stand with the Kino Kage and Naruto Uchiha, and those that stand with Danzo Shimura. A battle of the ages was going to take place, and this time, the opposite side had a lot of power and a lot of force. Phase 1 is complete, said Danzo. I don't believe that it will take too long for them to realize after Phase 2 is commenced. I still don't understand why we are allowing them to find out about this, Kurosaki said. Even with their defenses, if we hit them hard at once, we should be able to break it down. Danzo would have called the girl naive and told her to be quiet because she did not know anything, but he was giving her the illusion that she was actually calling part of the shots here. No, he said, looking at her. Over the years, their growth in technology and fuinjutsu has grown. The last time, if you remember correctly, a force of thousands were used. Capable ninja from all sides, and yet the barriers were able to withstand the powers of fully grown-tailed beast bombs. We have no idea how far they've reached in that area of protection. And now that we strike, they would be more rushed to guard themselves, raise up their barriers. However, that is why we left a couple of them alive. Right now, they're being moved back towards the Uchiha Nation in order to help them because of the pact they signed as allies. And as soon as we do Phase 2, once again, as we hit them from all angles, their forces will be in disarray, and they will have no choice but to step in and help their comrades. After these attacks, as large as our forces is, from the last battle we were all able to see that Naruto Uchiha possess the same flames that his father once did. Flames that don't just burn but destroy. Not to mention that strange monstrosity that was able to tower over all the tail beasts. Even with our army great and large, we're still made of flesh and bone, and he can simply wipe us all out. That is why he turned towards Orochimaru. I am going to be sending in what he cannot kill, Orochimaru said with a smirk. This ragtag group had came together well over the past couple of years. Despite the deep-seated hatred, Baki despised Orochimaru, but he had no choice because there was nothing that he can do. The Sand was severely weakened after the attack and had still not recovered, while Konoha had been growing their strength over the past couple of years. And now, this maniac was sitting on an entire army of mutated humanoid monsters. Baki knew exactly what was going on. He knew that Gaara was involved somewhat. It all made sense that he was the one that had kidnapped Gaara. Of course he had bring this up, saying that the Sand would not stand for that. And Danzo made it clear that this reparation for their attack on the village was just a small price that they had to pay for Konoha forgiving them and allowing them to be a part of the new world. And the next time he decides to pull something like this, thinking that he can simply back out, he would be on the target list. And Danzo had made things worse by showing the group the large, great army that they had. He did not show them physically, of course. Cameras and technology connections has come a long way, even though they were nowhere close to what the Uchiha Nation and their allies possess. So Baki had no choice, as there was a lot of this that his people did not even know about, but he knew that they did not possess any ounce of power to fight against a group like that, or to go against Konoha even, or to go against his regime. because he would be seen as a traitor and his village would be taken out and his people would be used as cattle in the next battle. So he couldn't afford to do anything stupid. However, that being said, he was working on something, yes, he was. Time skip. Kankuro, brother of Gaara and son of the former Kazekage, was unable to feel his chakra as he found himself situated in a location where he saw no windows. The moment Kankuro heard something, he felt it. It felt like a mountain had been dropped on his shoulders and it was slowly crushing him. That is when he saw the man with his own eyes. This was the first time that he was seeing him. The man's eyes were dark. The scar was situated on Naruto's face, given to him by his father in a fit of anger and rage from his father's side. It was always there and pronounced. However, it simply tied into making him look even more dangerous. Just his gaze alone sent shivers down Kankuro's spine, but he had to keep himself stable. You purposely allow my man to capture you after trying to trespass in the land of Wave. Speak now, said Naruto. I was sent here by our Kazekage Baki. I was able to use my puppet as a distraction to get away. Our village is being constantly watched by Konoha ninjas to make sure that we don't disobey what is being said. Our missions have been limited. Everything has been given to us by Konoha leadership. I'm not quite sure, but I think the Winged Daimyo was also replaced, assassinated by Konoha. Danzo Shimura, he was the one behind the attack. I already knew that, said Naruto. Kankuro figured that the man would know. But he's not alone. Baki has no choice. He has to step in. He was threatened. Kumo and the stone are also there as well, including Orochimaru. They have used the one-tailed chakra and the seven-tailed chakra to create strange humanoid hybrids. These monsters have the power of the tailed beasts, but on a much more smaller scale. However, their numbers are in the thousands. Mindless monsters that are being controlled by the Hokage of Konoha and Orochimaru of the Sannin. He's going after your allies to weaken them first. He knows that you will be forced to let them in your own village. The first one was just a show of the power that they possess, to slowly intimidate and try to break your forces down as they move. They know that your defensive might has grown greatly over the past couple of years, and they don't want to threaten or make a move against you, knowing that you possess the destructive capability to wipe them all out. Orochimaru and the Hokage are keeping something to themselves. They say that they have another force in the work, that someone else is a part of this group that remain in the shadows, and they have something to use against you. More so, someone that they would be able to use to take you out of the running while they lay waste to your village and all of your people, and then they will go after the remaining of your comrades and your allies. After that, they will kidnap all of them to use and split the countries into different pieces for the water section to be taken over by the land of lightning, while the hidden stone will take over the rocky terrain that revolve around the footground around the villages. They will be splitting up the elemental nation for them and wiping out all other competition. And they're doing this as we speak. The San doesn't want to be a part of this. We've been used by Orochimaru and now we're being forcefully used by Konoha, and there's nothing that we can do about it. However, the moment the attack is signaled, the San will redraw its forces and return back to its home. We don't want to be a part of what is going to happen. That is why I was sent here, to give you this message, to show you that we are not your enemy, but they are. Naruto had simply remained quiet, allowing Kankuro to say what he had to say. As Kankuro was absolutely terrified, even just by his gaze alone, Kankuro felt like his heart was going to stop any moment now. The strange part was, he was not releasing any bloodlust. His face was not set in a scowl. It was just the presence that he carried from simply existing. Time skip. The land of spring. As several dozen shinobis from the land of spring were standing right at their border as they watched the strange creatures rushing towards them. The things came from underneath the ground and was charging head first. The land of spring has a lot of defenses. Even from where she resided within her throne room, Koyuki could see everything as she looked at the monsters with a grimace look on her face. They had a humanoid build, but their bodies seemed to be made from sand, but it was not chipping off or breaking off as they moved. Their eyes seemed to be mindless as they ran, just two empty spears looking where to go. Their hands having claws on the tip of it, their legs, the claws on the tip of their toes ripping through the earth. Some of them had mutated tails behind them. Some of them had an extra hand coming out of their stomach. None of them were perfect. Koyuki gave the signal as what seemed to be massive clumps of mountains that surrounded the side of the border started to open up, revealing strange weapons. They looked like cannons, but they were far more powerful and advanced. Koyuki watched as the monitor went upwards as she saw the hundreds of insect creatures coming down. They looked like bugs, humanoid bugs, only their top half though. They did not possess a lower half, and they all had wings as they flew through the sky. They were going for an aerial and ground attack at the same time. However, just because of their vast numbers, they truly underestimated the defense of the land of spring. Take them down, she said. As the report was sent back, the massive cannons started to charge. And it wasn't cannonballs, instead, it was chakra. Yes, they started to charge chakra. Once they reached their peak, they fire, releasing a stream of destruction through the sky, ripping and tearing apart all of the miniature tail beasts, the abominations. Most of them started to split apart, flying away from the danger as they started to spit something out of their mouth. However, it was stopped by the barrier. It slammed against the barrier and exploded. They seemed like they were dropping small explosives. It was a buildup of chakra that they were releasing from their mouths. This was what they did to the land of swamp, raining down explosives. Unlike the land of spring, the land of swamp had its own defenses, which was the swampy areas around. That is why it was hard for the sand-like creatures to get inside, but the aerial attack, they worked because they didn't have to go through the swampy area. However, the spring was ready as they fired once again. However, the damn things were fast. However, they weren't done just yet as Koyuki looked towards her weapon expert. Do it now, she said. That is when the ground opened up as a small part of the barrier opened. Missiles, yes, missiles, came out of the ground. A collaboration from the rain and the spring coming together. This was mostly due to Nagato and his robot path. After the pack was made, he had spoken to their weapon expert, who was able to replicate the power of the Rinnegan. The missiles fired through. However, the moment they reached close, they split apart into dozens. They lit up the sky with violent explosions. One by one, the monsters fell. However, the other sand monsters started to rush even harder. As Koyuki sat as she watched, that is when one of her people came rushing in. "Ma'am, he's here." That brought a little smile to her face hearing that. The creatures remaining as they fly through the sky were making their way as they watched the barrier close, but They start to fire more of those explosives from their mouth until they all looked up. They could not dodge this. Something descended upon them as their bodies were hit. They literally exploded from the force. That is when an aircraft could be seen descending out of the sky. The bottom half opened up and standing there was. He jumped off without hesitation as he flew through the heavens. His Sharingan activated as he was going down below. Naruto landed on one of them. The creature tried to slash at him. Naruto tore its wings off before grabbing its head and burning it into ashes. He flipped off to another one as he swiped. Flames could be seen enveloping the heavens, swallowing a huge portion. As Naruto descended down, the others behind him, who was also flying down, started to move in a circle, as it showed that it was the aircraft and the weapons. Underneath said aircraft, the bottom started to light up with Fuinjutsu markings before it released a pressure that started to destroy the monsters. Naruto landed, boom, kicking up a lot of dust. The Spring Ninjas decided to join as they were going to take the fight to all of the Sand ones, but before they could, Naruto people landed as well, their face covered in mask. I wouldn't suggest stepping too close. Hearing that, the Spring Ninja looked out as Naruto released a breath, actual steam escaping from his mouth. As he walked into the massive army, they had sent a large amount of them here, knowing that the spring was greater than most. Naruto's eyes fixated on them. His entire body started to release a heat. As he stepped, the ground was being destroyed. Plants were being destroyed. The earth was crumbling. As the aura that surrounded Naruto turned into a red dragon that surrounded his form, the thing opened its mouth and breathed red flames. That was just what it looked like, the aura, but it was Naruto releasing all of that flames. The flames bathed the entire island. All of the sand atrocities tried to block it. They raised their hand, releasing sand as they had the ability to manipulate it as well, but their actions were for naught. It was over 1,000 of them, and all of them were incinerated just like that. As Naruto stood there, his gaze sweeping over the entire place. But it wasn't done just yet. They knew that it was there where most of the technologies came from. Therefore, the Uchiha nation would have to share a lot of their Fuinjutsu with them. This was going to be heavy. On all four corners, there was a mass of these sand and bug army floating through the sky and crawling on the ground, surrounding the land of spring. Yes, on all four sides, as they were coming. As Naruto turned his gaze towards what he knew was a monitor that was looking at him, as he nodded his head, Koyuki understood. Full power towards the seals, immediately she said. All other power was diverted away. That is when, up above was 4 other aircrafts, flying much more higher than the bug monsters were. That is when the bottom of the aircraft opened as the repulsors sent the things blasting down towards the earth. It wasn't enough to wipe away all of them, but they did crash hard at all 4 sides. 2 Uzumaki could be seen as they were holding something in their hands. The both of them placing the activation seal as they release it. This was on all 4 sides as Naruto gazed sweep over the entire area as he watched. The 4 small things fell from the sky. The miniature bugs start to get back into the air as they try to rise, but something dropped right in their ranks. It started to beep before it went off. What followed was A titanic blast. It was a chakra bomb. It spam in all different directions. Every single life form of these monsters were wiped away from the face of the earth. Their bodies turning into dust. Their chakra being destroyed. The entire island of the Land of Spring shook rather violently. All of the major towns were protected though, covered by sealing barriers. That is why Koyuki diverted all the power, as the backlash slammed against the barriers. Yet Naruto was outside. However, his body was shielded by the frontal structure of his Susanoo, which was not taking any damage despite the violent winds and the backlash. He stood there undisturbed. When the explosion finally died down, Naruto turned his gaze towards where he knew she was seeing him from, as a nod was given from his side. The barriers fell. From inside of the Land of Spring, countless aircraft started to take off. As they made their way through the sky heading to different directions, Naruto brought his finger up to his ears. It's done. The voice of Itachi came in. A far distance away, Itachi Uchiha stood on the battlefield. As there was destruction all around him, what seemed to be red flickers were now dying down from his form. But it wasn't flames though, as his eyes reverted back to normal. Looking around, there was no sign of the enemy left. Itachi quickly got word from the other groups. Kira ninjas were joining in on the battle, protecting the smaller countries. They weren't all though. There were also ninjas from the Land of Rain and their other allies. As the Uzumakis were going around in small quantities, they only need at least 4 Uzumaki to one village to activate the chakra bombs. However, some of them could not, given the proximity of the village and the destruction that would follow. The only reason why the spring was able to survive 4 of them was because the proximity away from them were rather large. Being too close, the barriers would not be able to hold up and they would shatter like glass. The force from the chakra bombs were great, enough to annihilate thousands in one go. Meanwhile that was going on, just off the coast was a literal army of white Zetsus. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands. In all, there was 100,000 white Zetsu. Yes, all of them gathered, splitting apart into several groups. The unhuman creatures. It was their job to attack the village. However, that, despite the numbers, were just a distraction. The main one that they truly had to worry about was Naruto Uchiha. The others might be strong, but not as him. However, Orochimaru had something to do with him, of course. He was surprised when the masked man had came to him, and wanting a partnership, he thought the Akatsuki was finally here to claim his life. However, he was wrong. Instead, the Akatsuki had been disbanded. There was only one other member that had kept to the masked man's side, and that was Kisame. Yes, Kisame was the only one that had kept to his side and was still working for him, because unlike many, Kisame was loyal and knew who was under that mask. As he wasn't like your average criminal after all, willing to die for a cause once he signed on to it, while Danzo and the others expected there to be more collateral damage from the inhuman, tail-beast creatures on Naruto allies. It seems like he was wrong in that regard, but this was working perfectly though. He had left the village, and many of the others had left the village. Danzo had belief, so this was a perfect moment. However, they weren't about to attack now. They were waiting, as the Zetsus dug themselves underneath the ground, hiding their presence, because they could not be sensed. As they hid themselves underground, waiting for the perfect opportune moment. All the other shinobis had been gathered. Countless had died during the war, but the remaining numbers, they were here to get revenge. Hate can never truly go away. Mothers, fathers, children were lost, and now their offspring were here. They were here for revenge. Konoha forces were forced together as well, as Danzo was the leader of the village, and Danzo was doing this because they had to get rid of this threat. And once it was dealt with, Konoha territory would span outside of the Fire Nation and beyond. This wasn't the opportunity that they could allow to pass them. However, Danzo had no one going against him. Absolutely no one at all. The Fire Daimyo would listen to his every single word, as Danzo had made sure that he would have no opposition. Absolutely no one going against him. At the very moment, Danzo was within close proximity in order to keep contact to what was going on the battlefield. Each group had more than one Yamanakas along with them. Alongside Danzo was none other than Jiraiya of the Sannin, being one of the stronger members within the village. Jiraiya had no idea about Orochimaru. In fact, Konoha had no idea that Danzo aligned himself with the Sannin. Many of the members was hesitant on choosing to attack the Uchiha Nation after seeing the massacre, but as Danzo was able to show them that it was the only way, having shown them the tail beasts that he had created, Orochimaru's name was not in any of this. After all, given what the Sannin did to the village, there would be chaos within the village if they found out that he was working with that slippery, slimy bastard. Fear was the greatest thing, as Danzo was able to use fear against everyone within the village, every single clan head, well except for Shikaku. Shikaku never trusted him. However, he was forced to do as his Hokage say, and even the very daimyo was siding with Danzo Shimura about this threat that couldn't go on coexisting, because soon enough the Uchiha Nation would come for them all, using fear against them, using the survival of their young ones, using it all against them. Not to mention he might have taken an extra step in making some of them more docile to see his point of view, and it was working rather well. However, while all of that was going on, while they were massing their forces preparing for an onslaught the moment those aircrafts arrive, what they weren't expecting were the massive teleportation gates that had been developed in the major countries, the land of spring, the land of rain, and Kiri as well, going straight back to none other than the Uchiha Nation. While they believed that Naruto was still on the battlefield, Naruto had returned back to his nation, as he was now sitting down with Kaido and Hina, the two elders. It seems it doesn't matter how we try, we can never simply coexist. The world will simply not allow it, Kaido said. Not the world, said Naruto. Hina could tell, despite his rather calm demeanor, which most might think that he was, but Hina could see it rather clearly. And it was the first time that she was seeing him this angry. The look in his eyes, you could tell. I suppose that you've already made up your mind, she said, looking towards Naruto. Yes, Naruto said. Over these past couple of years, with life moving on, I let go of a lot. Past grudges, the actions that was dealt to my clan, the people that were taken away because of greed. I let them all go, but others cannot. And this time, there will be none left once I'm finished. Wait, do you mean? Kaido said, looking towards Naruto. And from the look in his eyes, Kaido knew exactly what was going to happen. Yes, he did. Time skip. As Naruto was speaking to his people, giving out orders as everyone was quickly making their way. His beautiful wife Urza arrived, as the both of them had just a few moments alone to themselves. Since this whole chaos started, she could see the look in his eyes. "You're angry," she said, as she grabbed his right hand. "You need to calm down. You and I both know that going into this with rage is not the wise way to do this. They've done it before, and they're doing it again," she said. "But you need to calm down. You can get us through this like you did before, but you need to relax," she said to him. She could tell his face did not show anger. However, his eyes were what showed the anger. As Naruto seemingly took a breath as he held her hand in his. "I intend to go through with my plan that I started, but that I let go many years ago," said Naruto. She looked at him. However, she simply stepped in and hugged him, wrapping her arms around him. "It doesn't matter what happened or what you do. No one here would ever think less of you," she said, holding on to him as they stay like that just for a moment. "My apologies in breaking this up," Itachi said, stepping into the room. "However, it's time," he said. Urza looked towards Naruto. "Go. I'll make sure everyone here is safe," she said to him. As Naruto nodded. However, before he could go, there was one more person that he had to speak to. Moments later, we find Naruto arriving, as Tsunade Senju was standing there, along with her children. Both of them had grown. However, they were not alone. The moment he saw his father, Menma ran. Yes, he ran straight up, as Naruto picked him up in his arms. His boy, he was scared, despite all the others reassuring him, as Naruto had to leave. On multiple occasions now. "Dad, I'm scared," he said. Naruto held on to him. "It's okay to be afraid," he said. "However, you can use that fear to strengthen yourself. Use it to know that your father will never allow anything to happen to you, your mom, or this entire village. I'm the leader here," he said. "It's my responsibility and my job to keep you all safe. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. But in this I also need your help." You do?" he said, looking rather confused. "Yes, just like you are afraid. The other kids, they're afraid as well, and worried. But I want you to step up and show them that there's nothing to be afraid of. That their parents, their friends, their families will be out there making sure that they're safe and making sure no harm come to their way. Can I count on you to do that?" As Menma looked down before he snapped his gaze up, a determined look in his eyes. "Alright, Dad," he said. "I'll take care of everyone. I'll be brave, just like you and Mom." As he hugged Naruto, he whispered, "Be careful," he said. As Naruto whispered back to him, "I will." As he placed his son on the ground, despite his young age, he seemed to have an understanding, a maturity, as he made his way over, as he walked over towards Itachi's young daughter. However, she was trying to act all brave. When he told her that everything was going to be alright, she told him that she knew her father was awesome after all. However, boruto assurance seemed to get all of them, as there was multiple kids here. This place was one of the safest, and none of them would be harmed. As his son looked towards him with a smile on his face, causing Naruto to smile back at him before he looked towards Tsunade and suddenly vanished. Meanwhile that was going on, "I can sense them," the massive Nine-Tails said, as he wasn't alone. The 3, the 2, the 4, the 5, and the 8 Tails were all there, kept away from the world by Naruto, giving sanctuary. The only tail beast that had a bond with their Jinchuriki was the Eight Tails. However, B had no choice in what he was doing. He had to fight for his village. And the Eight Tails come to find Naruto to be a rather upstanding human, as he's never come to them, never tried to forcefully take their powers, even though he possessed those eyes that the Nine Tails was always talking about. Those eyes that could use and manipulate each and every one of them. That is why the Eight Tails liked his character. If he could get someone like Kurama to see him as a worthy human, then he was something special, there was no doubt about that. Here they were now, as the Nine Tails could sense the Zetsus. Yes, he could sense all of them. And the numbers were large. Naruto had not asked for their help in this war because he promised them that he would never come to use their power. He would never try to forcefully take their power. They were just alive as everyone was. And he would never force them to do anything they didn't want to. And out of respect, he didn't even ask. We have to do something. The two-tailed Nibi, as she's come to really like the human, he was just like their father. He is giving them a home where they would never be bothered. And everything here was so peaceful and great. Yes, this human is more like our father than anyone has been over the past couple of 1,000 years. All others have tried to subjugate us, tried to control us, but he's given us freedom. And even though he's facing a force this great, he's stuck to his promise and not come to us. So we should help then. The four-tailed monkey said, as all of them were a good judge of character. Their father did say that one day someone would arrive to unite them all. And it seems like they found that person. They all turned their gaze towards Kurama. Meanwhile, outside, an aircraft was making its way back to the Uchiha nation. However, the moment that was seen, and the barriers were going to drop, the Zetsu started to emerge out of the water. Around all surrounding area, the Zetsu started to converge and rush towards the opening. As Naruto stood there watching the large amount of forces that were being gathered, he watches the white creatures, different from the tail beasts, emerge. There were so many of them. Over 100,000. And they were surrounding them from all sides. The aircraft was a trap on Naruto's point. As all of his people were already at safety, everything was already prepared and everyone was already protected. This was just to draw them out, but even he was surprised by their vast numbers. Naruto was about to give the order until someone came to him. As he looked a bit surprised, poof! They happened within the waters, away from the village. Even the opposing forces came to a stop. As they all watch as the massive tail beasts, all of them emerge. The Nine Tails standing at the head of the group, standing strong along with his brethren, as they all start to power up a tail beast bomb. The Zetsus immediately started to move, trying to duck for cover, but when the tail beast bombs were sent their way, a violent collision happened that wiped out majority of them on all sides. The coast water shook violently. However, the whirlpools were able to sap away many of the strength that came from them. Meanwhile, Danzo cursed silently under his breath. I never expected them to make this move so quickly. As he stepped towards one of his root ninjas. It's time to begin. The root ninja nodded and quickly made his way off to give the word to none other than Orochimaru. Meanwhile, sir, as one of the Uzumakis brought a tablet to Naruto. On said tablet, Naruto saw the monitor scream. Who are they? Said Naruto. They're not tail beasts, but they're also not alive. One of their specialized drones flew towards as it went over the sea and saw the coffins. Stepping out of said coffins were, as Naruto was surprised. He knew this technique. He heard about it before. The reanimation to go this far, to summon the dead to help, as there was a whole bunch of them. As the other forces were not pulling any punches this time. The reanimations were unkillable zombies that could not be destroyed by physical force. The tail beasts had been a big help, but Naruto needed them to pull back. This wasn't something they could stop with their physical force, despite how great it might be, and with their destructive capabilities. His people might be caught up in the destruction as well. As Naruto started to make his way when suddenly, he came to a stop. Naruto felt the scar on his face. The scar that had been healed for some time now. The scar that had never truly went away because of his father's weapon. Because of the power that he used. It started to throb. Naruto clenched his fists, his other hand gripping onto his face. It can't be, he thought to himself. That is when they felt it. The sensors, they all felt it. Their system was going like crazy. A force, unlike any other, descended upon them. There was two of them that combined. Along the way, Naruto came across Itachi. As Naruto made his way, he first went to Kurama and spoke to Kurama. As the great beast saw the reanimations traveling across the water without a mind of their own. With that, each of the tail beasts started to poof away. As Naruto's sealing core started to spread, his ninjas started to emerge. That is when several ships could be seen coming their way, and several aircrafts as well. These were the forces from Kiri and the Land of Rain as well, as information was quickly passed on to them. Naruto stood at the coast along with Itachi. Itachi gaze could see it. Itachi, for once, looked rather fearful of what he was witnessing at the moment. As Naruto stood there, his expression was unreadable. Go, said Naruto. Itachi questioned him, but just go, Naruto said. Itachi knew what he had to do as he nodded, before he quickly made his way off. Him and the other forces quickly getting to work. However, as those two coffins stood there, their lids both exploded with a fury. As the power that was being sensed were coming from them. As two people emerged, both of them looking rather similar because the older one was in his peak. Standing to the left was Madara Uchiha, the ghost of the Uchiha clan, a demon if there ever was one. Alongside him was the man that many people did not dare to name. They call him the Red Dragon, but his true name was Indra Uchiha, gifted with a name that was said to be from the one that started it all. The man was said to be a beast, comparable to his father, or maybe even greater. A monster that knew no bounds. A monster that slaughtered without hesitation. He gave the true name to what a Uchiha was. They were said to be bloodlusted individuals that could fight until there was nothing left. And this monster was said to be one of the greatest. What is this? Indra said, looking confused. Madara stood there as he spoke. It seems we have been reanimated in this pathetic form. He said, rather upset that he did not come back alive. It seems they've summoned the both of us. Whoever we're up against must be a rather dreadful opponent for them to summon myself. And you, I presume. You underestimate my strength. That is the first thing you have to say, even after being reunited with your son. You say that, and yet, you never truly saw me as your father. Weren't you the one that said, an old relic like myself should just die along with the past? The two had met. Yes, Indra knew that Madara was alive, but he wanted nothing to do with him. After the death of his wife, he just turned even more cold, even taking his anger out on his own son, that he never thought was anything special at the time. I was the one that reanimated you both. Looking behind them, they saw the second Tsuchikage. And who are you? I am Orochimaru of the Sannin. Orochimaru, what is the meaning of this? It was Indra that asked, knew full well who Orochimaru was. There is a lot that has happened since your death. I presume that your son knows nothing of what you planned all this time. So, he let you in on the plan as well, Madara said. Well, not all of it, but we do intend to share the reward once we are able to take down our foe. And there's only one foe that is standing in our way. One person. And who is this person? Madara said. You should know by now. After all, they do say blood recognizes blood. Indra turned his gaze when he saw the lone figure slowly making his way. Is that? Yes. None other than your son, Naruto Uchiha. My son. He scoffed. My pathetic excuse of a son. That is why you have reanimated us, to face someone that weak. Pathetic, Indra said, scoffing. But you see, you have been dead for a very long time, and a lot has changed. Madara turned his gaze as he looked behind him to see strange monsters. Thousands of them. Some of them walking and some of them flying. Oh, don't worry about them, they are just backup. Your true target is there. As Naruto came to a stop in front of his own father and his grandfather, I never thought you would bring them back. As Naruto looked at Mew, he could see the connection. Orochimaru could tell that he was looking directly at him. Well, given your might, you should be honored. Besides, when does a child get to face his own father and grandfather in a battle? To test your limits against your own kind. It should be fun. Be quiet, Naruto said. When this is over, I'm coming for the both of you next. Orochimaru chuckled. It is great of you to think that you will survive what is to come. So, you're the big opponent that you're talking about. I see you haven't changed much, Indra said. You have no idea what has happened, father, said Naruto. He spat the word with such disdain. Well, it seems like we're having a family reunion. However, I'm confused. Why aren't you on our side, Madara said. Because I would never choose to work with scum like you, said Naruto. Well, it seems you've damaged your relationship with your son, just as you did ours. You know nothing, you old fool, Indra said. So just stand there and be quiet. I must say I'm surprised to think that you're the threat that I have to face. That coward child that couldn't stand against me. You were always so weak. A disgrace to the Uchiha name. Look at you now. Gain a bit of strength and think you could rival someone like me. Naruto shook his head. You're the pathetic one. Even after being reanimated, you're still filled with such hate. Never truly getting over yourself or your own damn ego. You're just a pathetic dead man that I'm going to put back in the grave. You naive child. You think you can best the power I wield. His power started to surge, but Naruto did not blink. Well, it seems I will have to take part in this as well, said Madara, as there was a smirk on his face though. Show me why they had to summon the both of us to face you alone. With pleasure, said Naruto, as he took off his robes, showing his battle armor underneath. His father wasn't wearing one. He was dressed in a Jonin attire without the flap jacket. Just the black shirt and envu pants. And there was a weapon on his back. The three of them activated their Sharingan at the same time as the words slipped out of their mouths. Let us dance. As they flash forward. But guys, be and subscribe right here. If you want the next person do, like, subscribe, comment down below and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm off now, see you guys soon. Peace.